It was a rainy Thursday night in the quiet college town of Ashbrook, Oregon. The streets glistened under flickering streetlights as 21-year-old Emily Carter, a senior majoring in psychology, packed her books inside the university library. It was nearly 10:45 p.m., and the building was about to close. She sent her roommate a quick text. "Heading back now, be home in 15. It was the last message anyone would ever receive from her. Emily wasn't the kind of person to go missing. She was responsible, focused, and always cautious. Her parents often described her as the kind of girl who triple checks if the door is locked. She lived off campus with 2 roommates in a small rented house, just a 10-minute walk from the university. That night she took her usual route, a narrow path through the campus park, bordered by thick trees and dimly lit lampposts. At 11:20 p.m., her roommate Sophie Lane noticed Emily hadn't come back. She called her, no answer. At first she thought maybe Emily ran into a friend, but by midnight concern turned into panic. Sophie called the campus security, who searched the usual spots, the library, the cafe, the main quad, but Emily was nowhere. The next morning, the police were notified. Detective Mark Hollins, a veteran investigator with 20 years of experience, took the lead. He'd seen dozens of missing person cases, but something about this one felt different. Emily had no history of running away, no mental health issues, no reason to vanish. When police checked surveillance footage, things got strange. The library's main exit camera showed Emily leaving at 10:47 p.m., wearing a light gray hoodie and jeans, holding an umbrella. But a second camera, the one on the park entrance, should have caught her walking through. It didn't. She seemed to have disappeared between 2 cameras, a gap of less than 200 feet. Investigators scoured the area. They found Emily's umbrella near a bench by the park's edge, snapped in half. Nearby, there were faint tire tracks and what looked like drag marks leading toward the road, but rain had washed away most of the evidence. By evening, flyers with Emily's photo were everywhere. Local news picked up the story, labeling it the vanishing student. Her parents, Laura and David Carter, arrived from Seattle, devastated but hopeful. "Emily would never just walk away," her mother said, trembling before the cameras. "Someone took her." That night, police discovered something chilling. A resident living across the park had a doorbell camera that caught a brief, grainy clip at 10:51 p.m. It showed a dark SUV idling by the curb, headlights off. Then a few seconds later, the sound of a muffled scream and silence. Detective Hollins froze when he watched it. "That's her," he whispered. But the footage was too blurred to catch the plate or the driver's face. Still, it confirmed what everyone feared. Emily hadn't vanished on her own. Within 48 hours, the entire town was on edge. Students stopped walking alone. Parents pulled their children home. A reward fund was launched and volunteer search parties combed nearby woods, rivers, and back roads. But as days passed with no new leads, something darker began to surface. Several students came forward saying they'd seen the same black SUV near campus before, always at night, always moving slowly. One said she even noticed it following her once, but she brushed it off as paranoia. For Detective Hollins, this case was no longer about finding a missing student. It was about uncovering what or who was stalking the town's young women. And somewhere in the rain-soaked streets of Ashbrook, someone knew exactly what happened to Emily Carter. The morning after Emily's disappearance, the Ashbrook Police Department became a hive of activity. Reporters gathered outside, the sound of clicking cameras mixing with the patter of rain. Detective Mark Hollins stood before a board covered with photos, maps, and timelines. In the center, Emily Carter's smiling face circled in red. He began the day with the library's security team. Reviewing footage again, he noticed a brief flicker in the video at 10:46 p.m., just a minute before Emily left. The screen glitched, a short distortion. The system timestamp jumped forward by nearly 12 seconds. "That's odd," Hollins muttered. The tech expert said it was likely a camera fault, but Hollins had seen enough investigations to know that camera glitches at key moments rarely happened by chance. The next stop was the park entrance, where Emily's umbrella had been found. Officers had already set up tape, and forensic teams scanned the area with portable lights and dogs. The rain had ruined most of the evidence, but a small, strange detail remained. A torn piece of fabric caught on a bush, dark and oily. They sent it for lab testing. Meanwhile, interviews began. Sophie, Emily's roommate, was first. Sitting in the small, cold interrogation room, she clutched a coffee cup tightly. She was stressed, Sophie said, but not enough to run away. She was worried about her final paper. She had mentioned meeting someone for help, but she didn't say who. Did she mention where? Hollins asked. Sophie hesitated. No, just said, if it goes well, I'll finally be done with this. That line stuck in Hollins' mind. If it goes well. Later that afternoon, a campus janitor named Tom Riley came forward. He claimed to have seen a black SUV parked near the park around 10:40 p.m. It wasn't moving, just sitting there with lights off, he said. When I walked past, it rolled down a bit, like someone didn't want to be seen. That made 3 separate witnesses mentioning the SUV. By day 3, the FBI was contacted, though they initially declined to take over, citing no federal involvement yet. Still, they offered technical assistance, particularly with the digital angle. Emily's phone had last pinged near the South River Bridge 2 miles from campus before going offline completely. Divers were sent to check but found nothing. Then, on day 4, a potential lead appeared. A local gas station clerk came forward saying a man in a gray hoodie had bought duct tape, gloves, and cleaning wipes at 11:10 p.m. the night Emily disappeared. Surveillance footage confirmed it, but the man's face was hidden by the hood. The clerk remembered only one thing. The man drove a black SUV with a dent on the rear bumper. Hollins' gut twisted. He ordered an immediate canvass of every black SUV registered in Ashbrook. There were 213. The process would take days, but time was running out. Each hour meant Emily's chances of survival dropped. By the 5th day, the lab results came back for the torn fabric found near the park. It was automotive upholstery, the type used in SUVs manufactured between 2010 and 2015, and it had traces of chloroform. That changed everything. At a press conference that evening, Hollins faced the cameras. "We are treating Emily Carter's disappearance as an abduction," he announced. The crowd gasped. Her parents stood behind him holding hands, tears in their eyes. But what the public didn't know was that Hollins had just received a private message on his office phone, an anonymous voicemail. "You're looking in the wrong place. Check the old Ashbrook construction site. She's not the only one." The call was traced, but it came from a burner phone, untraceable. Hollins played the recording again, his expression darkening. She's not the only one. That night, the search for Emily Carter took a sinister turn, from a missing persons case to something much deeper, something organized and something that had been hiding right under Ashbrook's quiet surface for years. It had been 8 days since Emily Carter vanished, and the air in Ashbrook felt heavier with each passing hour. Posters with her photo flapped against lampposts. Candles flickered at vigils, and whispers of fear filled every corner of the college. Detective Mark Hollins hadn't slept properly in days. His desk was covered with case files, coffee cups, and a large map of Ashbrook with red pins marking sightings of the black SUV. Then, something unexpected happened. On the 9th morning, Sophie, Emily's roommate, rushed into the police station, pale and trembling. "Detective, I got a voicemail," she stammered, handing over her phone. It came from Emily's number. Hollins' eyes widened. Emily's phone had been dead since the night she disappeared. He plugged it into the evidence system, hit play, and listened. The message was only 7 seconds long. A faint crackle of static, then a voice, strained, terrified, whispering, "Help me. It's underground. Can't breathe." Then a loud clatter and silence. The call had come from an unregistered tower, near the old Ashbrook construction site, the same place mentioned in the anonymous tip. Hollins didn't believe in coincidences. Within an hour, he gathered a full tactical team and drove straight there. The site was a half-demolished building project on the outskirts of town, abandoned for years after a company bankruptcy. Rusted cranes, cracked concrete, and warning signs surrounded the perimeter. The main structure, a half-finished parking complex, stood like a ghost in the mist. "Thermal scanners show some heat signatures underground," one officer reported. They moved in, flashlights cutting through the darkness. Inside, graffiti covered the walls and debris littered the floor. Then, deep in the basement, they found something, A metal door, half buried under rubble, padlocked shut. It looked recently used. When the lock was cut, a foul odor escaped, chemical and rotten. The team descended into a narrow tunnel, the walls damp and lined with makeshift wiring. The air was thick, the silence absolute. Then they saw it. A chair bolted to the floor, restraints still attached. Nearby, a phone, Emily's phone, shattered. Blood spatter on the wall, and in the corner a small box filled with student ID cards. 5 of them. None belonged to Emily. Jesus Christ, an officer muttered. They sealed off the area immediately. Forensics were called in, while Holland stepped aside, his face pale. He called Emily's parents personally. "We found something," he said quietly, "but we're still looking for her." Hours later, a new clue surfaced. Surveillance from a traffic camera, taken at 11:15 p.m. the night Emily vanished, showed the black SUV leaving the industrial area. The plate number was partly visible. 8TR 59. That was enough. The vehicle was registered to Professor Alan Reeves, a 45-year-old criminology lecturer at Ashbrook University, one of Emily's instructors. Reeves was well-respected, charming, and known for mentoring struggling students. Sophie confirmed that he had recently offered Emily private guidance sessions. When Holland saw Reeves's photo, he felt the chill run down his spine. "Bring him in," he ordered. The arrest was swift. Reeves looked calm as they cuffed him outside his home. "You're making a mistake," he said softly. But his basement told another story. Hidden cameras, multiple burner phones, and a set of keys matching the ones found at the construction site. The evidence was undeniable, but there was still one problem. Emily wasn't there. Reeves refused to talk. For 48 hours, he stayed silent through interrogation. Then on the 3rd night, he finally spoke. "You're too late," he whispered. "She's where the others are. Buried beneath the truth you'll never dig up." Holland slammed his hand on the table. "Where is she?" Reeves just smiled. And as dawn broke over Ashbrook, a new message appeared in the police tip line inbox. A single GPS coordinate, sent from an untraceable email. The message read only, "For Emily." Hollins looked at the coordinates. It pointed to the South River Bridge, the same place where Emily's phone had last pinged 9 days ago. The coordinates led Detective Hollins and his team to the South River Bridge, a gray skeletal structure that cut across the cold water like an open wound. The sun was only beginning to rise and fog clung low over the river's surface. As they stepped out of their vehicles, the air smelled faintly of rust and wet earth, the kind of scent that made the back of your neck tighten. They set up a search grid immediately. Divers entered the river, moving slowly beneath the current while drones scanned the banks from above. For the first half hour, nothing, just silence, the rhythmic thrum of engines and the metallic creak of the bridge. Then one diver surfaced, waving frantically. "We found something!" The team gathered as a black tarp was lifted from the water. Inside was a wooden crate secured with rusted nails. Hollins's stomach knotted as they pried it open. Inside were 6 cell phones, all sealed in plastic bags. One of them, unmistakably, belonged to Emily Carter. The other 5 matched the IDs found at the construction site. Hollins felt a deep chill crawl down his spine. Whoever had sent that GPS coordinate wanted them to find this. It wasn't evidence hidden out of fear. It was evidence left as a message. Hours later, lab reports confirmed something stranger. The crates had traces of industrial solvents used in construction demolition, the same type the old Ashbrook company had been using before it shut down. That company had gone bankrupt 5 years earlier, but the records showed a silent investor who had kept the land and buildings under a shell corporation. That investor's name, Alan Reeves. The revelation cracked the case open. Reeves wasn't just a professor. He had quietly been buying up property under different aliases for over a decade. He used these abandoned places as traps, luring vulnerable students with promises of help, using the empty construction zones as his private hunting grounds. But there was still one gap. Why? Late that night, as Holland sat in his office surrounded by case files, something caught his eye. A transcript from one of Reeves's old lectures. The topic was Control Psychology and the Fragility of Truth. In it, Reeves discussed how people only see what they are told to see, and how the true experiment of humanity lies in fear and compliance. A cold realization dawned. Reeves hadn't been acting alone. He had been recording everything, turning real abductions into psychological experiments, testing reactions, observing how police, media, and communities respond to tragedy. The next morning, a digital forensics unit cracked into Reeves's encrypted hard drives. What they found was beyond horror. Hundreds of hours of video footage, each labeled by date, victim, and phase. The folders were named Observation, Response, and Control. Emily's folder was the last one. The videos showed her trapped in a dimly lit room, answering questions from behind a glass barrier. The voice interviewing her wasn't Reeves. It was someone else, calm, emotionless, with a faint accent. A man saying, "You are part of something bigger, Emily. We observe, we learn, we adapt." Reeves, it turned out, was just the facilitator. The real operation stretched beyond Ashbrook, an underground network using real victims as data for behavioral research. Human lives traded for insight. The room fell silent as the footage played. Hollins turned it off halfway through, unable to breathe. "We're not dealing with a single killer," he said quietly. "We're dealing with an organization." The revelation sent shockwaves through the FBI office. Agents began tracking offshore accounts and ghost companies linked to Reeves. Each lead opened another door, another layer of deception. And yet, through all the chaos, Emily's body remained missing. Her parents waited, her friends prayed, and Hollins couldn't shake one thought from his mind. If Reeves wasn't the mastermind, then the person behind that cold, distant voice was still out there. The town of Ashbrook had turned into a living crime scene. Police vehicles lined every street near the university, journalists camped outside the station, and the once peaceful community now lived in constant dread. What began as a missing person case had evolved into something that felt much larger. A conspiracy hidden in plain sight. Detective Mark Hollins hadn't left the precinct in almost 2 days. His eyes were red from exhaustion, his desk flooded with files, and yet he refused to rest. The videos from Alan Reeves's hard drive still echoed in his mind. The cold voice of the unknown man. The experiments and Emily's terrified eyes staring into the camera. Then, on the 12th day since Emily's disappearance, a video surfaced online. It was uploaded to an anonymous YouTube channel titled The Final Broadcast. Within minutes, it went viral. The video opened with static followed by text that read, "You were told she disappeared. She was taken for a reason." Then the footage shifted, showing Emily Carter, alive but visibly weak, sitting in a dim concrete room. Her wrists were bound, her face bruised, her voice trembling as she spoke. "If anyone sees this, please don't stop looking. He's not alone. They're watching all of you." The screen glitched. Then the same male voice from the recovered footage said calmly, "Fear is the strongest form of control. The experiment continues." The video ended abruptly. The FBI immediately traced the upload, but it had been routed through 6 international servers, bouncing between locations across Europe and Asia. Within an hour, the channel was deleted. But it had already been downloaded by thousands, reposted, dissected by online communities calling it the Ashbrook experiment. That same night, a local fisherman reported something unusual near the South River's northern bank, a half-submerged crate caught between the rocks. When the divers retrieved it, the truth came crashing down. Inside, wrapped in a gray tarp, was Emily Carter's body. The autopsy confirmed what Hollins feared most. Emily had died roughly 2 days before the video was posted. That meant the footage had been recorded earlier, edited and released after her death. It wasn't just documentation, and it was a message. Reporters swarmed the town. Theories exploded online. Some claimed the experiment was a secret government mind control program. Others believed it was the work of a private cult obsessed with fear psychology. The FBI called it an ongoing multi-state investigation. But for Hollins, this wasn't about theories. It was about justice. He sat alone in the station that night, watching the footage again. He froze the frame right before the static. Behind Emily, for a split second, there was a reflection in the glass wall. The outline of a man, tall, wearing a surgical mask and what looked like an FBI badge. Hollins leaned forward. No way. He enhanced the image, but it was too blurry. Still, the possibility burned in his mind. Someone inside the system had access. Someone with the power to hide evidence, manipulate surveillance, and erase trails. The next morning, Hollins turned in his resignation. "You're walking away?" his captain asked. "No," Hollins said quietly. "I'm going deeper. Off the record." 3 weeks later, a package arrived at a news station in Seattle. Inside was a flash drive labeled Phase 2. The contents? A collection of new videos and different victims, new locations, and a single voice whispering at the end, "The experiment never ends." The story of Emily Carter didn't just expose a crime, it sparked a national panic. Ashbrook became a symbol of unanswered questions, vanishing truth, and the haunting realization that maybe, just maybe, the people investigating the crimes were part of them all along. And somewhere, in the shadows of another city, cameras began recording again.